And so I had to figure out really quick that nobody's going to do what I say just because I have the title. I still have to figure out a way to inspire them, to get them to see my point of view, to understand why my point of view might be better. And then I also have to be humble enough to say maybe my point of view is not better and I don't actually know what the right thing to do is. And I have to lean on you, my peers.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations with Jonno White podcast. Today's guest is Jethro Jones from the United States. Jethro helps school leaders create amazing schools. Welcome to the podcast, Jethro.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. This is exciting. I love a chance to talk about cool leadership stuff.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to the chat. First of all, tell us a bit about what you do and who you are for the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So I do what's called the 3 C's, and I break that up into three things. First is coaching. I do a lot of coaching for people who are starting their own podcasts and people who are school leaders. And we can get into a little bit more about why those two very different things are part of what I do. But but I do a lot of coaching. The second C is I do a lot of creating. I make my own podcasts, and then I write books, do speaking and stuff like that. And then the third C is my favorite one. That's clarifying, where that's where somebody says, hey, I've got an issue. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what kind of help I actually need, but can we figure something out? And maybe you can help me out with it. And so I've consulted research organizations, ed tech companies, principal associations, and many others on different things that they need help with. And it's just a lot of fun to be able to say, I don't know. I don't have like a framework for doing this specific thing that you have an idea of, but I know I can help you. And that's a lot of fun. So coaching, creating, clarifying, those are the three things that I do.
Yeah, I love that explanation. I think there's a lot of overlap with the work that I do as well, because it's very similar. And I was just talking with an association yesterday about doing a keynote for them, and exactly the same process. Like they're like, oh, we've got this issue, and then we spent 20 minutes kind of brainstorming together. And out of that came, some ideas to do something that's really bespoke. And so, yeah, I share that same love for clarifying. That's great.
Yeah,
Let's jump in.
I just want to say real quick, that's one of the really powerful things is whenever I do a keynote at a conference or something or with a group of folks, it's always unique. Like I have this dream that I'd be able to like go give the same speech over and over and over again, like some of those people you see, but I just can't do it when it comes down to it. I just can't do it. and
Yeah.
so every time I give a talk, it's unique to the people that are there. And I may bring in some different elements of things that I've talked about before, but really I start them all from scratch and then I bring those things in later on. And I think that is just that idea of being bespoke and knowing that if you come to a session that I do and then you come to another session, you're not going to get the same thing. And my life would be a lot easier if I did that, but I just can't make it happen.
Yeah, I get that, and it's there is something, like you said. I think as well, it's about your approach, because you're obviously going in and meeting with the people and trying to understand what they need and what their stakeholders need, which is different to a hire me to talk about my one thing approach. It's much more collaborative.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is, I'm excited to hear about Jethro's story because, yeah, as you said before, the podcast and coaching school leaders, what you do is really interesting. So I'm excited to hear some of your story as to how you've gotten there. Let's start going back to young Jethro. When you were little, maybe when you're a teenager, what are some moments that come to mind that really shaped you to become the person and the leader you are today?
Well, I don't know what it was like in the 90s in Australia, but in the 90s here in America, there was this TV show on Saturday mornings called X-Men, and I just loved watching it. And you know what? Back in those days, we didn't have a recording where we could like watch it later, DVR or TiVo or any of that kind of stuff. We didn't have streaming services, so I could just watch it whenever I wanted. And I always missed it, or almost always missed it, because my dad would take us out on Saturday mornings and we would be doing some sort of service. Either we'd be helping someone move in or out of their house, or we'd be helping some our church owned a bunch of orange groves, and we'd be helping at the orange grove harvest oranges. And I'm sure that it wasn't every Saturday, but it sure felt like every Saturday that's what we were doing. And I remember always trying to get back in time for me to be able to watch X-Men, and it almost never worked out that way. And so from my childhood, that is one of the things that I remember clearly, and that has impacted my life again and again throughout my adult life. Having that example from my dad of serving people uh, when you really don't want to.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny as well how I think the encouragement for leaders, because it reminds me of a similar story that Kevin Skio has shared on my podcast, who's a Canadian school leader now in the UK and working across Asia. But he shared a similar story on the podcast. And what I love about your story there, which I think straight away my mind goes to for leaders who are listening, is what you were doing. Like, you never think that picking some oranges when you wish you were watching X-Men would be an experience you'd be talking about decades later. And yet I think that really encourages me, because it's you know, that just modeling and living out, particularly with your family and those closest to you, but as a leader, just modeling and serving can actually, in the little things, can be a significant part of helping to shape the people you're leading as well, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And those things that we don't necessarily want to do, but that we still do, there are two lessons from that I take. There's the lesson from you doing something you don't want to do, but there's also the lesson from my dad or someone like my dad who's getting you to do the thing that you don't want to do. And that's where I think the leadership aspect comes in, is that on the one hand, my dad made me go do it. But on the other hand, I actually wanted to spend time with him and wanted to be with him doing this thing. And it was worthwhile for me to do it for me, even though it was not the thing that I wanted to be doing at the time. And that's, I think, a really powerful lesson that I learned from that is helping people figure out what it is that they should be doing and giving them insight into why they should be doing it also.
Yeah, 100%. I love how you pulled that apart. The difference between the person actually choosing to do something sacrificial, but then the leader, in this case your dad, having that connection and relationship with you where you didn't want to do the thing but wanted to spend time with him, and he kind of he was able to um, encourage you to do that. Obviously there's the father side, which is a bit different to a leader in terms of being your dad, but similarly, how do we as leaders encourage people? I have a philosophical kind of question, big picture question, that pops into my mind that I wanted to throw at you, um, because I love that you've gone straight into sacrificial serving, and I think that is, like, it has to be one of the most important things about being a healthy leader, and healthy leadership is exactly what you unpacked. But I know that we both work with schools, and so what I'm seeing is a lot of teachers who are very sacrificial, but we've got this teacher burnout around the world. So this is where I'm really throwing a curveball at you here, Jethro. But what are your thoughts on for schools around how we want to have sacrificial servant leadership, and teachers living that out as well? But where do you draw the line, or how do you draw the line between doing that and potentially burning out, like we're seeing for a lot of teachers? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, burning out is a huge problem, and I think that part of the problem could be with how we define what that looks like. And you use the word sacrificial service, and I don't see it that way. What I see it as is putting the users and the students first, and for a school leader to put the teachers first and help them achieve the things that they're trying to achieve. And there's some nuance here, and it's not like it's all clear, totally like exactly here's how you do everything. But there are some key pieces that I think are really valuable in this discussion. And one of those things is that we ask way too much of teachers so that they feel like, because teachers are rule followers, right? They're going to do the things that we tell them to do. And so if we say you have to turn in lesson plans, for example, they're going to put energy into looking at those lesson plans, even though they know and the principal knows no principal has enough time to actually look at those lesson plans and do anything meaningful with them. So it's a complete waste of time. And yet, some places, one of the districts I worked in, actually made that a requirement that you had to turn in your lesson plans. And I was like, that is so dumb. What a waste of energy. So part of the problem is that we ask the wrong things of our teachers. The other part of the problem is that teachers also don't understand the way they should be spending their time that is most powerful and effective for supporting their students. And so if you are sacrificing and looking at it as a sacrifice, then you start to become resentful about that. And you don't need to be resentful. You need to desire to serve others and desire to put them first. And there's a big difference between those two. Let me give a brief example because I
Yeah.
think it'll help illustrate. So if I have a student who is a cross country runner and and they need to do an assignment, if I said do this assignment as though it is affecting your cross country running, and that's what I want the assignment to look like. Doesn't matter what class it is in. All right, so science, elective class, art, English, doesn't matter. Do this from the perspective of you being a cross country runner and bring that into this assignment so that this assignment actually helps you with your cross country running. It doesn't matter if I like cross country or don't, or if I understand it or I don't, or if I do it or I don't. None of that matters. What matters is that the person who's doing that assignment then feels like this matters because it's related to something that I care about. And that's just a little example of how you sacrifice, to use your word, or you serve, or you design what you're doing to make it so that the student or the user is the one who's being prioritized. So that may make it a little more difficult for me to grade that assignment if it doesn't fit into this nice little multiple choice box. But the assignment's going to be better. You're probably going to learn more from it, and you're going to enjoy doing it more. And I'm probably going to enjoy reading it more because it's not going to be the same thing. When I first started as an English teacher, I had 217 students. And I remember because I had to make 217 copies because we had to keep track of how many copies we made. So I always made 217. If somebody was absent, I wrote their name on it so that when they came back, there it was, they could have the paper. And I always knew exactly how many I needed. So silly, right? But that was what I had to spend my mental energy on, was making sure that I had the right number of papers for my students. So when I had those 217 students, it makes it a little more difficult, but I had to read 217 of the same basic paper, which was so boring that I hated it and I didn't want to do it anymore. So we've got to think about these things at a deeper level than just doing assignments, just completing work. We really need to think about it as what is it that our people need, and then do the things that they need and make life better for them. Not easier, not faster, but better. And sometimes that means harder. Sometimes that means easier, but we want it to be better.
Yeah, that's so good. I think what you've unpacked there is as well. It must be a natural tendency for any organization, particularly when you've got a bureaucracy, because you're a massive education system, to try to tailor everything across the organization so that it serves the system or the
Yes.
organization. But you've
Yes.
differentiated that there to say, and I do find this. I've experienced this as challenging myself as a leader. Yeah, if you're trying to play catch up, or you're feeling like you're time poor, or you're feeling overwhelmed yourself, the natural tendency is to say, okay, what can I bring in that's going to serve me so that I can make my job easier? But it's that little mindset shift to say, actually, as a leader, what can I do? Like, let me put myself in the shoes of the teachers, because that's and to equip them so that they can be putting themselves in the shoes of the students who are in their classes, exactly like you just explained. I think that is, man, that's a big shift if we can make that. I understand why it happens, that we want things to serve us or serve the system we're a part of to make things easier. But yeah, if it's at the detriment of the teachers and of the students, then we've completely missed it.
Yeah, exactly. And like going to that piece of the system is designed for the ease of the teachers and the adults, but it's not designed for the ease and experience of the students. And so students being able to register for classes or do homework or whatever it is that is designed, it is not designed for the students. And that's one of the things that I focus on a ton is how do we redesign our schools so that it is beneficial to the people that are there. So you may have something, every school's been around before you got there, and every school's going to be there after you leave. So what is unique about you being there right now and the people that are there right now, where you can take advantage of that and make it designed specifically for them rather than just have it be any old school? For example, if you're hiring a teacher, if you put out a job posting, a teacher is a teacher no matter where you go. And that becomes this process of getting as many applications out there as you can if you're applying, and interviewing as many people as you can to find the one that seems like they'll be the best. But if you turn that around a little bit and you say, this is the kind of person that we need here, and then you write a job description that specifically looks for that type of person, then it's not just a teacher that you need. It's a teacher that possesses these specific qualities and these specific beliefs. And let me tell you, once you are clear about that, people come out of the woodwork. People that you would never think want to leave a school are going to come to your school. And this applies to any other organization as well. You're working a fast food restaurant. How can you make your fast food restaurant something where people want to come and work there? How do you make your business, whatever it is, a place where people see themselves in your business and want to come and work with you? That's an incredibly powerful thing. And when it works, you can get some of the best talent in the world that's really good at what they do, who are excited to be part of it because they're part of something bigger than themselves, which is what we all innately want.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's so what I often say to leaders around this with hiring is, you want to think like an organization that people are going to want to move cities for. Like that's because it's true. Like if you can articulate that, there will be people. There's that group. There's that person out there who would be a perfect fit for your culture and your values and what's important to you. And if you can find them, you'll be amazed that they're, particularly with the teacher shortage right now and working with rural schools. I think it's, you know, this is the thing. How do you articulate that about the place of work, and then how do you articulate that so that someone who's, like you said, really happy somewhere else, but they go, oh my goodness, that's what I want to be a part of. Um, and it sounds obvious, but I really think we don't do it. I think normally we do the just get as many in and as we can and go through them, because if we're not intentional, that's what we just fall back to.
Yeah, because Jono, we're just looking for a warm body to fill the spot because anybody can do this job. And that's exactly what we say when we just put out any old job description. We say anybody can do this because we can just teach them all the distinct individual skills that they need. And the reality is that if you want to be a high performing organization, no matter what you are, if you want to be high performing, you have to have a clear vision and you have to get people to want to be part of that vision. And if they don't, then you're nothing. And so we talk a lot about soft skills, and the way that I prefer to talk about them is mechanistic skills, which are, you can train anybody to do this, and X plus Y equals Z, all that kind of stuff. These are very specific, discrete skills that people have to have. However, there are organic skills, which is the term that I prefer for soft skills, which are living and breathing, and they continue to grow and develop. And those organic skills, you have to really look for them for people who already have them, and then you have to specifically train them on how you get people to exhibit those in the way that you want them to. And part of that is helping them be in a place where they can flourish. And if you can have them in a place where they're flourishing, then you can see those organic skills come through. And that is really powerful once you start seeing that, because people come out of their shells, they do things they wouldn't normally do. But if you just got a job that like you're just paying the bills, people don't approach that in the same way. And then the sacrifice leads to burnout because it's just a job, is a job. It's not something special. It's not something meaningful that adds value to your life more than just a paycheck.
Yeah, 100%. I agree, and I think that's a big part of the answer. Okay, I want to jump back into your story because we talked about the oranges, we talked about your dad.
Yeah.
So after that, I'm keen to know: is there a particular moment that stands out in your mind, where you remember having your first opportunity? Like you've been a school principal and had that ultimate responsibility in terms of leading a school. But do you remember when you were younger doing anything and feeling like, oh yeah, there's something about, leading or casting vision or getting a bunch of people moving in a particular direction that I might be interested in doing?
Yeah, for sure. So this one started when I was about 12 years old. And I was put into a position of lay leadership in my church. I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I I had an opportunity to lead a bunch of other 12-year-old, 13-year-old boys. And I learned so fast that they don't care what kind of title I have. They're going to do what they want to do, not what I tell them to do. And so I had to figure out really quick that nobody's going to do what I say just because I have the title. I still have to figure out a way to inspire them, to get them to see my point of view, to understand why my point of view might be better. And then I also have to be humble enough to say maybe my point of view is not better and I don't actually know what the right thing to do is. And I have to lean on you, my peers, to help me figure that out. And boy, I thought I'm going to have all this power. These boys are going to look up to me. And they didn't. They didn't think anything special of me at all. They're like, cool, let's go play some video games. And that was pretty much it.
Do you remember any moments with them where you felt like you had a breakthrough earning their trust, or getting kind of you'd tried things a particular way and weren't getting any buy-in, and then you kind of had an aha moment in that role? I love that. You're 12 or 13. That's such a great that's such a great
Yeah.
leadership story.
No, I didn't have any breakthrough or moments of buy-in during that time because I was an arrogant, selfish young man who didn't understand, despite what my dad had been teaching me for years. I still didn't understand it. So I had leadership opportunities from then until I went on a mission for my church to Russia when I was 19. And pretty much every single one of those are not notable, not noteworthy, nothing special or worthwhile happened. I don't think that I was a good leader at all. And so, no, not until I was in Russia did I have any positive experiences with that, I would say.
Do you think, as well, as you reflect on those times, because I get that, I resonate with that. I think of myself, any opportunities I had when, 16, 17-year-old Jonno, and I think, yeah. But do you think with different, like, with different leadership of you, in terms of would it have been possible for you to have some aha moments, or do you think it was, no matter who you had around you, it was just a stage of maturity for you where you kind of had to learn the hard way?
I always have to learn the hard way, so definitely that. that, that is for sure. But I know that it's possible because I see young kids today who can do what I could not do when I was that age. And I don't know if kids my age could do it then. I imagine they probably could, and I was too arrogant and prideful to be able to see it. But I can definitely see it now, and I see kids because our church still operates the same way, and we still put kids in leadership positions. And I see how they are doing an exceptional job. And if the adults would just get out of their way and let the kids continue to lead, and I say this about schools also, we could do some pretty amazing things, if we would just get out of the way and let them take the control that they're ready and prepared to take.
Yeah, 100%. So if we zoom out a bit and look at your career up to this point, I'm keen to hear about any really big aha moments you've had as a leader, as you've been in more senior roles. Anything that stands out as I guess, as a real mindset shift, or something where you went, oh, okay, that's how that works, and it's really stuck with you.
Yeah, so I mentioned the one, which is you can't force anyone to do anything. Well, guess what? When you're paying them a paycheck, you still can't force them to do anything. So just remember that. One of the other things is that I had to learn, being in education, I could not offer any financial or other incentives for anybody to do anything. And so what I really had to learn was I have to do I have to help people see the vision of where we're trying to go, and hope that that inspires them so that they will want to go that path with me. And if I can't do that, then I'm probably not going to be successful in a lot of things. Because if they don't see where we're going and see where they fit in that path, then they're just going to do their own thing. And I saw that time and again. And every time I I had a teacher who was not on board, it was because I did not help them see where they met the vision in their own way. And every time I was successful, it was because I helped that person see where they met the vision in their own way.
Yeah, I love that. I imagine, we might have a listener going for a jog somewhere in the UK, or, and they're just thinking to themselves, oh man, I need to do that. So what advice would you give them to a listener who's thinking, I need to help my people, see how they can contribute to the vision in their own way?
Yeah, well, it really starts with you as the leader. You have to be clear enough about what your vision is that other people will say, okay, I get it. And as I got better at this, I saw, now education is a really slow changing field, but I saw change happen exceptionally quickly. When I went to my third school as principal, within 12 months, we had changed it to where it needed to be. And that was not because I was forcing things to happen. It's because I was painting a vision and I was helping people see where they were involved, and where people, just didn't want to or didn't think that that was what they should be paying attention to or anything like that. Um, in those situations, those people didn't see how they fit into the vision. But that wasn't a deal breaker. That didn't mean that we stopped or that they were useless or anything like that. What it meant is that either I need to continue working with them to help them see that, or it meant that they didn't see that they were part of the vision and wanted to get out of there. And because I have this belief that the school should be serving students, not every teacher agrees with that. And so many teachers don't agree with that. And they think I'm the one who got the degree. I get to stand up here in front. And in fact, one teacher said to me one time, I'll never forget this. He's like, Jethro, I think it's cool what you're doing, but I really like having all the attention of these kids. I really like that they have to shut up and sit down and listen to me. And I said, that's fine. This probably isn't the best place for you then. And because we were clear about the vision, that was a much easier conversation than it would have been otherwise. And there was another teacher who I said, this really isn't the best place for her. And she went to another school and she flourished at that other school because that school had a vision that was aligned to who she wanted to be. And it was a great connection. The principal said, Jethro, thank you so much for sending this teacher to me, because she is just like a leader among leaders in our school. She catches the vision. It's amazing. I can't believe you let her go. And I was like, thank goodness you took her, because she was a lump on a log for me, and I'm so grateful that she's not in my school anymore. And but there was no hard feelings because she didn't catch the vision. She didn't see herself in the vision. And I didn't have to feel badly about that. And neither did she. And we found her a better place where she did catch the vision. And it was amazing. And it was a good experience for her to have that herself.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. How, I guess the thought that comes into my mind is, how do you navigate those conversations where you say maybe this isn't the place for you? Because I can imagine a young leader. I can imagine myself, right? When I was a young leader, I hear Jethro talk about that, and it's tempting to just be like, well, this isn't the place for you, and this isn't the place for you because you're a bit, I'm finding you a bit challenging to lead. And how do you navigate? How do you walk that journey well, where you're painting the vision and you're doing everything you can to help the person see it, but then you end up kind of landing in a place where you both realize, like, yeah, that, do you understand what I'm kind of asking?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough because you have to be very confident in your vision, but recognize that you can't see everything. So you got to be really clear about where you want to go and what you want it to look like. But then you have to recognize that you're going to miss some things and you're not going to understand how some things work. And you're going to do some things that are a little bit different or wrong or whatever. You have to be okay with that, but you got to be so clear on what it is that you want. So let me give a real specific example. This third school that I was talking about, my purpose was to go there and to personalize learning for our students, which means that every student is going to have a unique experience, and we're going to design the school around the students, what they need, what they're interested in, and make it work for them. And that's going to require different kind of work for our teachers. Now, my personal belief is that that's a better kind of work because you are spending all of your time working with kids and helping the light bulb go off, which almost every teacher in an interview says, this is what I want, is to see the kid's light bulb go off. And so the challenge is that it takes a different kind of work. Not everybody's ready or cut out or wanting to do that kind of work. This teacher I mentioned, he wanted to stand up and lecture, and that's not a personalized experience. And so that's not really going to fit with what we're trying to do. But I talked to him about it and I said, hey, this is where we're at and this is what we're trying to do. And he was like, yeah, that doesn't really fit with what I want. And the thing is that it's not actually a hard conversation when you're clear enough about the vision that people can see where they fit or don't fit. And so it actually becomes a much easier conversation than if you're trying to make up some reason to get rid of somebody. Cause I've done that too. And I'm like, this person's annoying, or I don't like them, or they're not doing what I want. So I want to get rid of them. And that's a lot harder than, hey, this is where we're going. This is what it looks like in the future. Do you want to be part of this or not? I don't want to be part of that. Okay, how can I help you find a different place to be? Because this is where we're heading. And if you can be that clear and that direct, it really helps. And so let me just to make sure it's clear. So I would say we're going to be a personalized school. We're going to personalize all of our learning for our students. That means you're going to likely give different assignments to different students at different times. That means you're likely going to have to think about how you deliver your lessons in a different way, that it's not going to be you standing up and lecturing all the time. Is that something that you want to be part of? There's going to be more projects. There's going to be more hands-on learning opportunities. There's going to be more field trips. Is that something you want to do? And if they say no, then it's like, okay, how can we help you find a place where you do want to do that, where you can do what you want to do? And it's not a, you're not good enough, I don't like you. It's a, you don't match the vision. That's a lot different than saying you're not a good teacher, because you may very well be a good teacher, and that's fine, but just not the kind of way that we want it done at our school. And those clear conversations are really important.
Yeah, I think what I love about that is you gave that the teachers clarity. Not only I think often we think we're being clear when we talk about our vision or the values of who we are as a school or any organization. We think we're being clear, but you've actually gone into strategy in terms of how we teach, which I think sorry, my record in my home office, and my 2-year-old just dropped something upstairs. So
It's all
which
good.
is all part
I
of
love
the environment. But I think that's what I like about how clear you were with them. Is it wasn't just a painting, the future, but it was quite specific in saying this is how we're going to get there. This is what personalized learning looks like. And I think if people can really kind of articulate what that is, I think the key word that comes to mind for me, which I love the book Blue Ocean Strategy, and they talk about fair things. It needs to feel fair, and I think for a teacher, if we use that example again, who hears the new principal come in and talk about personalized learning and talk about these things again and again, to say this is where we're going. You're going to be doing more projects. You're going to be, it doesn't take long for me to realize that okay, that's the direction we're going, so that when I'm having conversations about personalized learning and changing and doing these things, there's a fairness to it. It's in front of me. I can talk to it. And then you gave them the opportunity to say, you know what, I really don't want to change how I teach. I much prefer to be the lecturing style. That there's a lot of fairness in that process. And I think what happens is when leaders go wrong is we try to make it easier for ourselves because we don't want to have difficult conversations. What we end up doing is making it feel very unfair for people. They don't know what's happening. All of a sudden, they're in the office with the leader, feeling like appropriately they're probably getting a true gut feeling that that there's a bit of an agenda to get rid of them, and that feels very unfair. And so I think that idea of what I like about your examples there is that process, even if it's hard, even if it involves some pain in terms of changing, and I can definitely see how the person on the other side of the table would say, you know what, this is not ideal, and it's not easy, but it's fair. Jethro's been fair about it. He's always been upfront about it.
Yeah, and that fairness is it. I don't see it as fair. I see it as respectful. Like, it is respectful for me as the leader to say this is what our vision is, and to make sure that you understand that that's our vision. It is respectful, and it is appropriate for me to be able to be clear about that. And the problem is that we come into these organizations that may already have a feeling or a process. And the reality is, like, people want to have a job, right? They want to provide for their families. And so there's a balance there. And so you can't just like say, okay, this is where we're going. You have to figure this out or else you're gone. But you have to say, this is where we're going. 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 As they butt up against that vision and keep feeling like it's not working out, that's when you start to have the conversation of, all right, it looks like you're not feeling like you're part of that vision. What's going on? I've said this like 10 times and you keep pushing back. Why are you pushing back on this? What's not feeling right? Sometimes they just don't understand the vision. Sometimes they just don't understand where they fit in the vision. Sometimes they don't want to be part of that and they're pushing back because they don't think they should have to be part of that and still be able to work in that school. And a lot of times that comes from this idea of like, I'm going to outlast whatever this next principal does. And that may very well be the case. My approach is we're going to do what we're doing to serve our students and help them be successful. That's what our priority is. And I didn't understand how impactful that was that I actually said that until a teacher came to me and said, Jethro, do you know why everybody's afraid of you? I said, honestly, I don't, because I'm a really nice guy. I'm like super chill about most things. And I feel like I care about people really deeply. So seriously, I don't know. I don't know why people are afraid of me and don't like me. And she said, well, it's because they know that you put kids first so intensely that if they do something, then they feel like if they don't have the same level of it's about the kids as you do, then they're going to get in trouble or they're going to get reprimanded or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's what's really going on. I think that our school should be designed for kids. I don't think they should be designed for the adults. That's what the issue is. That's why people get uncomfortable around me, is because I believe that, but I haven't said it out loud yet. That's not respectful to them to not let them know where I stand and to just drop hints every once in a while. So then I started saying, if there's an issue between you and a student, I'm almost always going to side with the student. And then my problems melted away because they understood what my vision was and what I was going for. And so once I started saying that, then people were like, oh, he's not so scary anymore. Now we know how he's going to react. Because what they didn't know before was how I was going to react to a specific situation. And they thought, well, maybe he'll act this way, maybe he'll act that way. When to me, it was very clear how I was going to act, but I never explained that. And I didn't share it with them. So they couldn't then know what I was going to do. So having that clarity about who you are and your values and what you believe really goes a long way. And then you just need to be honest about it and be clear about it. And that may not be very popular. Let me tell you, being a principal saying that we're going to put students first, even though everybody gives lip service to that, but actually acting that way, that's not a very popular stance in education. Despite what people want you to believe, almost everything we do in education is putting the adults first, not the kids.
Amazing. I love your passion for that. And yeah,
and I'm not even that fired up awesome. Yet, man. Just wait.
It's good. It's maybe we can. I mentioned before we started recording about a part two at some point, maybe down the track. We could do a specific part two about this idea, because I think, I think having you fired up for a whole podcast just talking about why we need to make the education system about the kids, not about the adults, is that'd be really fun. Anyway, let me jump into Leadership Express as we land today. I've just got a few questions for you. The first one is, I got this from Tim Ferriss's podcast, and I really love this question. What book have you gifted the most to others?
Probably The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Have you read that one?
No, I don't think I have read The One Thing. It rings a bell. I think I've seen it, but I don't think I've read it. I'll have to get it. Yeah, The One Thing. I'll definitely have a listen. Oh, I listen to audiobooks. That's why I said that. So
yeah, you can do that.
My wife always gives me grief about, you don't read. You can't stop saying you read that book. I'm like, I did. I just listened to it. So I now say that I listened to it.
I'll take it, John. Yeah. You're right.
Hey, I want to give a plug to your podcast. So can you tell our listeners about how they can find your podcast, by the way?
Yeah, my podcast, my main one, I actually have several because I'm a big nerd that way. My main one is Transformative Principal, and transformativeprincipal.org is where you'll find that. And it's been going for over 10 years. It is the longest running, most downloaded podcast about education leadership out there. And so if you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. And if you are listening to it, then just reach out to me and say, hey, Jethro, I'm listening. I would love to hear from you. So that would be an honor to me. Transformativeprincipal.org.
Yeah, I second that. It is so nice to hear from people, even if it's not any great aha moment, if it's just like, hey, I appreciated that. I'm just letting you know I'm listening. It's nice.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What about podcasts you're listening to, or any books you're reading at the moment, any blogs, anything that you're just really loving content wise at the moment?
Yeah. So the podcast that I always go back to is called The No Agenda Show. And it is my current events podcast. But the one that I'll recommend here for your listeners today is called The World Needs Men, hosted by Franklin Swan. And Franklin has just taken this approach of the world needs really good men out there. Men like my dad, men that inspire and help and are just good human beings. We need more of that. And we need more men to step up to that and do that. And every episode that he puts out is incredible. So that would be what I'm listening to currently.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Okay, this is a fun one. Do you have any favorite questions that you ask when Jethro's in the room in a one-on-one and with a team? Are there any you think, it's a go-to question for Jethro?
Yeah, one that I really love is, what's the nerdy thing that your spouse rolls his or her eyes about when you talk about it? What is that thing? So what's that for you, Jonno, where your wife's like, oh, brother, don't get Jonno started on this again. I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours.
There's so many. I'm trying to pick. I'm trying to pick which one. I actually, That's such a great question. It really is. At the moment, this is very context specific, but right now, um, our little boy Roman's 2.5. So we're reading all these children's books. And my thing at the moment is I analyze these children's books. Like most of them are great, right? But every now and then there'll be one where I really take issue with kind of the message it's sending around. There's just this one book we have which kind of everyone's so mean in it and they're trying to make a point in terms of learning and skills, but I'm like, dude, the main character in this book needs to find a new forest. This is just a horrible place to be. Like that should be the anyway. So I think the thing that Liz is rolling her eyes at the most right now is Jonno's commentary on the kids books.
I love it. I love it. So right now, my thing is I'm learning about making my own, like doing programming, developing, coding type stuff. And I'm just really terrible at it. But I created my new website recently, and it's a static website, which means that it's not like each time I publish it, I have to like publish the whole website. And that's not how most blog type things work. But I really like it because it's super fast and I can update it quickly and I can be really nerdy about how I'm doing things. So that's my current obsession that my wife, when I tell her about it, she's like, cool. I don't know what any of that means, but I'm glad you're happy about it because I have no idea what you're talking about. And that happens pretty regularly.
Yeah, the one that's more long term for me is I like one of my favorite pastimes is I love reading fantasy books.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've talked about it before on the podcast, but for me, one of the biggest challenges I find because I love clarity so much, that running this business is I'm always coming up with new ideas. So I have to try to purposefully find things that help me kind of switch off from clarity. And I love reading these fantasy books. So I will often tell Liz like what's happening in the fantasy book. There was a like this bear. They've just tamed this bear, so now this bear has become like part of this group of people saving the kingdom or whatever. And she's always like, "Oh my goodness," I kind of do it as a joke, telling her because outside of the book, which I love, if you just tell someone randomly, it sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why this is such a good question is that people get really passionate about things that they're passionate about and they love to talk about
Mm,
it. And if you can, as a leader, understand what people care about, you can help them in many different ways beyond just listening to what they care about. But imagine like asking me, hey, what'd you do cool on your website this week? And then me being able to tell you. And like, you don't
mm.
have to know what I'm talking about, but you just have to be there to listen and understand and be like, oh, that's cool. I can dig that.
100%. I love that question. I'm definitely going to add that to my arsenal of questions that I have, particularly when I'm with teams. I think that's a really great icebreaker as well. So thank you for that. Okay, last question. If you could only give one piece of leadership advice to a young leader, what would you say?
We've talked about some things that I think are good, but I'm going to go in a little bit different direction. And I'm going to say, don't ever blame anybody above you for any decision that you make. If you make a decision, you own it. Even if you disagree with it, you better like either refuse to do it or own it 100%. Don't ever say, well, the boss told me I have to, so I have to. Nope, that doesn't fly. Own your decisions.
I love that. That's fantastic advice. Okay, well, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. It's been such a fun episode getting to know a bit about Jethro's journey, but also I just couldn't help but ask these kind of big picture questions along the way. So it's been a really fun chat. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Jethro's mentioned before, Transformative Principal is his main podcast, and transformativeprincipal.org. Is that right, Jethro? Or
Yep, that's right.
yeah, perfect. So people, please check that out. But last of all, I want to say a massive thank you to you, Jethro, for giving your time, and don't take it lightly. And I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I've learnt a lot myself. So thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.